Surprise Comics.
In this video, we're going to go through the step-by-step process of how to submit comics to CGC. Now, there's two very important questions that you have to answer before you get to the actual submission part, and that is, which books are worth grading and how much is it going to cost to get them graded? I have two separate videos addressing those two questions. One's called, is it worth grading your comics? And one is called, how much does it cost to grade your comics? So this video is assuming you've already established those two things and you're ready to submit to CGC. So we're going to go through the actual process of how to fill out the online submission forms and some really helpful tips about all of the steps along the way. And then we're actually going to go through the process of packaging them up and shipping them off. Before we hop into it, we always do a monthly giveaway here on the YouTube channel. If you subscribe, comment, and like this video, you're entered to win a free slab each and every month. And if you head over to brycecomics.com and sign up for the newsletter, you're also entered to win a free slab. You get first access to new collections and mystery boxes. I have some really exciting mystery boxes coming soon. If you use code COLLECT10, you'll get 10% off all in-stock items. Also, you can follow me over on Whatnot, link in the description, for $15 towards your first purchase, and on Instagram for trades for grails and other exciting stuff over on Instagram. So with that said, let's hop into the computer and go over the submission form for submitting to CGC. So this is assuming you know what the price is and you have your account already set up. You go to submit and you go to submission forms. This is also where you can check the status of your submission. We'll go over that after we've done the submission here. So down here, these are all the different forms. You've got posters, lobby cards, video games, trading cards, and comics and magazines. This video is going to focus on comics and magazines and not any of these others. So you click this link right here. You would select Start New Order. And this is where you select either comic, magazine, or poster. So magazine includes things like The Last Ronin, which makes it really annoying because it's a modern book, but it technically goes under a magazine submission. Everything about magazines at CGC sucks. The cases suck. The turnaround times suck. So hopefully you don't have any magazines, but we're going to focus here on comic books. So you select comics, and then you select your submission type. So there's signature series, where if you're sending your books in for a signing event, you would go this route, but that's not what this video is about. We're going to select regular grading submission. So this is for pressing and grading, and you have your different options here. You can do a mail-in or show drop-off. So sometimes CGC sets up at Comic Cons and you can do your submission form in advance and then drop it off there. But the vast majority of people will be doing mail-ins. You can also drop it off at their headquarters, but that's not going to apply to very many people. So we're going to select mail-in or show drop-off. And here's where you select your service. So we have grading, pressing, crossover, reholder, restoration, removal, restoration, and mechanical error return. 99% of the time, it's just going to be grading. They also offer pressing. This is through CCS, which is CGC's pressing company. I don't recommend CCS because they are kind of cryptic about their process. We don't know exactly what processes they use to press books. Historically, their turnaround times have been bad. Recently, they have got them way better, so the turnaround times are better, but I still wouldn't recommend them. There's plenty of other pressers that are the same price or better, that have, more transparency and stuff. Hopefully one day, this will be a really good option, but I just can't recommend it right now. Crossover is when you have a different grading company like PGX or CBCS and you want to send the book in that holder to have it graded by CGC. I also don't recommend crossover. It used to be cheaper. You would get a discount to crossover your books, but now it's the same price as grading. And they're going to crack the book out of the CBCS or PGX case, and they're going to regrade it as if it was graded for the first time. They're going to completely ignore the grade that was on the other grading company's label. So in my opinion, if you're going to do a crossover, you may as well just crack it out yourself, have it pressed and cleaned, and then submit it under grading, because usually books that are in older cases that have been in a PGX or CBCS case for a long time, they could probably use a press anyways. So you may as well get it pressed and cleaned before you get it graded by CGC. Reholder is if you have an old holder or a chipped or cracked or scratched holder that you just want to get a new holder for it. If you're sending in a book for a reholder and it's an old label, say it was graded by CGC 10 or 15 years ago, they will honor the old grade as long as the book inside the holder hasn't been damaged. One tricky thing is CGC's grading standards have changed over time. 15 years ago, they had different grading standards than they do today, but they will honor that old grading standard as long as the book hasn't been damaged in the holder. So if there's a severe crack or damage to the book and it looks like the book possibly has been damaged, they will regrade it. But if it looks like it's just an old case, you just want to get the updated case and nothing has happened to the book inside, they'll honor that old grade. But one thing is, you could get your old holder book, you could have set it in a windowsill for 10 years and have natural light hit it and completely fade out the cover. If that's the case, they're going to regrade that thing. So CGC doesn't guarantee that the book will keep the same grade, but they will honor their standards. Okay, so restoration, removal, and restoration we're not going to get into in this video. Mechanical error return is what you'd use this, and you can reach out to CGC customer service if you receive your submission back and it has cracks or scratches or something wrong. You'll do a mechanical error return. But today we're going to talk about grading. So you select grading. This is a really interesting consent form that I think you need to actually read if you've never submitted before. If you're submitting a collectible already in a holder, holders are designed to be tamper evident and extremely difficult to open. Even when careful, damage might still occur, resulting in a lower grade than before. So if you send in a CGC 9.8 and you're having them crack it out, there is a risk that it could get damaged. And then it also says here that some comic books with glossy covers might experience color lift when removed from a holder, resulting in a lower grade than before. Some signatures written with a paint pen might lift off when removed from a holder, resulting in the loss of the signature. So maybe you have an Amazing Spider-Man 300 signed by Stan Lee and a paint pen. If you crack that sucker to have it signed by Todd McFarlane, you could lose the signature of Stan Lee. So this is why I don't mess with signature series. There's a whole bunch of inherent risks that come along with that. It's also important to note that crossover regrade is not guaranteed. So if you're sending in a CBCS 9.8, don't expect it to keep a 9.8. They're not even going to look at the old grade. They're going to grade it as if it was the first time. Here's the thing about submitting for a signing event. There is an inherent risk when a collectible is subjected to additional handling from a signing event, which might result in a lower grade than before. So say you have an ASM 300 9.8, it's a blue label, and you want to get it signed by Todd McFarlane. They're going to crack that thing out of the case, which could result in a lower grade. Then there's going to be all of this additional handling. They're going to take it out. They're going to put it in a bag and board. They're going to hand it to Todd McFarlane. He's signing thousands of books that day. They're going to hand it back to the other person. Then it goes back to grading, and then it's graded again as if it was being graded for the first time. So I don't mess with signing for this reason. To each their own. You need to weigh the risks and benefits for yourself. So we're going to agree here. And one of the things about agreeing to that thing, I will say, after submitting thousands and thousands of books to CGC, I've had a couple of situations where books were damaged, and every single time they've taken care of me. So I absolutely would not use the inherent risk that's involved in the grading process as an excuse to not grade your books. Everybody has a different opinion about this. A lot of people are like, there's no way I'm going to submit my prized collectibles because of this risk. So to each their own, but for myself, I don't think you need to worry about the risk of damage. And if they do damage it, they've taken care of me in every single situation. All right, so here's where you select, we've already selected grading. Now is where you select the tier. And this is a very important step. So the modern tier is for books from 1975 to present, valued up to $400. So the $400 is not like something that you need to be completely neurotic about. Okay, this can be the value that you paid for the book. Say you have an Ultimate Fallout 4 and you paid $200 for it. You don't need to, go look up prices and see. First of all, you don't know what grade it's going to get. So if it gets a 9.8, yeah, that's like over $1,000 book. But you only paid $200 for it. And so you can submit it here under the modern tier. Now, if it's an incredibly expensive book, like say it's the Ultimate Fallout 4, 1 in 25, and it's like a $20,000 book, if you submit it under the modern tier, they're probably going to send you an email and say, hey, this book is worth a lot of money. We're going to have to go ahead and bump it up to the walkthrough tier. So the worst that they can do is bump it up to a higher tier. One thing to note about this is the value that you declare for the book is how much they're going to be insured at while they're at CGC. So if you put Ultimate Fallout 4 and you valued it at $400 and they damaged the book, they're going to come back and they're going to say, okay, well, you valued it at $400 and that's what they're going to pay you at. So it's also the amount that it's insured at while it's at their facility. So take that into account. Economy is for books valued up to $400 that are prior to 1975. So this would be your Silver Age and some Bronze Age books. And then we've got standard for comics valued up to $1,000. Express is any comic, any year valued up to $3,000. And then walkthrough is the fastest possible turnaround time. That is not true, actually. Modern books are going way faster than walkthrough at the moment. But this is for any book valued at any value, and they charge you 3% of the fair market value, a minimum of $150. These percentages and values that you see here are after my dealer discount. So dealers get a 15% discount. The top premium tier for CGC membership gets a 10% discount. So whatever membership you have, the accurate price will be reported here. So we're going to start with a modern submission. We're going to add other stuff to it later. You have a couple add-on options. High-res imaging. This is simply a picture. They take really nice pictures of your book, but I wouldn't do this. Only reason I would do this if it was a super high-value book and you don't have a good camera. Then it might be worth the $5 to you to get a nice picture of the front and back of your Grail book. But if you can take your own pictures, it's totally unnecessary. Grade pre-screen. So this is for either the modern or economy tier. All right. You can't do grade pre-screen on standard, express, or walkthrough. You used to be able to, but not anymore. And so now it's a 25 book minimum within a single grading tier, either modern or economy. And you select this service to specify a minimum grade on your invoice, and you get an $8 fee per rejected book. So for example, you could have 25 books in the modern tier, and you want to pre-screen them for 9.8. So that means they're going to pre-screen the books. If they hit the 9.8, they'll grade it, encapsulate it, and charge you the $20.40 or whatever your membership tier is. And if it doesn't get the 9.8, they will return it to you raw and charge you $8 per book. So you have to select one grade for all 25 books in that tier. This also used to be different. You used to be able to select whatever grade you want for each individual book in the 25 books. They changed that. Now you have to select one grade. So it's either 9.8, 9.6, etc. Fast Track is an add-on that cuts the turnaround times nearly in half. It's only available for modern and economy. I would not recommend it for modern because they're pumping out their modern books so fast that modern pre-screen is actually going faster right now than modern pre-screen Fast Track. So if you were doing modern pre-screen and you added Fast Track, you would be completely throwing away money. In fact, you'd be spending more money to get your books back slower. This video is being filmed on February 15th, 2023. This is subject to change. You have to look at the current turnaround times, ask some people in the community about the different tiers. But right now, modern pre-screen is going like 2 days. It's going lightning fast, so there's no need for this. Economy is where you absolutely do want to add Fast Track, because the economy tier currently is taking like almost a year. And so if you do the Fast Track, that cuts it down to like 2 or 3 weeks. So economy Fast Track is totally worth it. All right. So now we have our modern pre-screen. So we're saying that we have at least 25 books in the modern tier. You could have more. You could have up to 500 books in one submission. So you could do a pre-screen for 500 books, but it's a minimum of 25. So we're going to click Add Comic. And then we come over here to this screen, and this is where you type in the books that you're actually submitting. So for this, since we're doing it on the computer, I'm going to pull up Key Collector and use this to show the book. So let's say we're going to do Spider-Man #1. Now this is a tricky one. This is a hard book because there's so many different Spider-Man #1s. If you type in Spider-Man 1, it automatically pulls up 50 results or so here. 50 matches are shown, and you can see there's so many different options, and there's not the one that we want. Okay, so how do you figure out how to type in the one that you want? Well, if you go over to Key Collector, when you're typing in the books, it says the release date right here. Another good resource for this is mycomicshop.com. Mycomicshop.com has great information about the publishing date and the variants. So you might have, for example, Amazing Spider-Man #1, the Clayton Crane. Well, this one has a bunch of different Clayton Crane versions. So My Comic Shop breaks it down. This is version A, this is version B. So this is a really good resource to find out which variant you have. And Key Collector is also good to find out the date. So this is from 1990. So if you type in here Spider-Man #1 90, it's going to pull up the date from August 1990. So here's all the different variants for this issue, and we want the silver edition. So that's a little trick right there on how to find your book. Here's where you're going to put the quantity. So let's say we actually have 10 of these, and here's where you declare the value. Now, this is, again, the best estimate of the fair market value of this comic based on the recent purchase price of the comic, the auction results, a bona fide purchase offer, or other reasonable method. Declared value will be used to insure your comic while it's in CGC's possession. If you're submitting more than one of the same comic, enter the declared value per comic rather than the total. So we have 10 and the declared value. Let's just put it at $200. If they were to damage the books, they're going to actually look up what they're selling for. They'll do this when it's in their favor, but not when it's in your favor. This is a really important point. So if you submit a book and you declare the value as $400 and it's really worth $1,000, if they damage it, they're going to say, oh, you declared it as $400, that's what we can pay you. But if you put $200 for the declared value and it's actually worth $100, they're going to do it when it's in their favor. They're going to say, oh, we looked up the value of this and it's really only worth $100, so that's what we can pay you. So just keep that in mind. You're going to want to have your books insured for the full value, depending on how much risk you are comfortable with. So we're just going to put $200 as a declared value for this, quantity 10. Here's where you can add a custom label. So here is all of the different options that they have for the custom labels, and they're constantly changing. Okay, so you can select a custom label. Now, it used to be that if you selected a custom label, it changed the tier. So let's say you only wanted the custom label for Spider-Man, the Spider-Man book, and you have a 25 book pre-screen. Well, if you do 10 of them with a custom label, that's going to put them into their own tier, and then you can't do your pre-screen. So that's really frustrating. I'm not sure if they've fixed that or not yet. If they have, you might need to reach out to customer service to figure that out, and have them manually change that. So we have 10 copies of Spider-Man 1 Silver, and we're going to add that comic so it shows up here. So now let's say we want to add to it Venom number 3. All right, there's a lot of Venom number 3s. So here's where you're going to have to find the date. Venom number 3 from 2018. So we're going to go over here. Venom 3 2018. And look, it doesn't show up because you typed in 2018 and they do their dates a little different. So if you just put 18, now it's going to show up Venom number 3 from August of 2018. So a little tip right there. There's a bunch of different variants and stuff. There's the second printing, there's a third printing, Italian edition. So just make sure that you are selecting the right one. If it's just this one, this is cover A for Venom number 3. So that's just Venom 3 from 2018. Let's declare the value on this one as $400, a little more expensive. We're not going to do a custom label because it's not really worth it, in my opinion. I mean, maybe it's an additional $5. If it's for your personal collection and you love it, I'd say go for it. If you're doing it for resale value, I don't think it really, makes too much of a difference for this. So we're going to add the comic here. So now we have 11 books. So let's add another book to the submission, Star Wars number 1. Now you might think, well, this goes in a different tier, right? Well, no, this book was actually released in 1977. So let's just say, even if you got a high grade copy here, it's a 9.0, you can absolutely declare the value around $400. So we're going to type in Star Wars 1. I'm doing this with one hand. Star Wars 1 pulls up a ton of different options, but it actually does pull up the correct one from 1977 there. So we're just going to click Star Wars 177, quantity 1, declared value $400, and add comic. And so it keeps track of everything down here. Now we have 12 books. We need to get to 25. So let's say you want to submit this. Could be a difficult one. It's not in Key Collector. This is Wolverine number 1, the banana variant, the John Tyler Christopher negative space variant. And it can be hard to find it even here in my comic shop. If you type in Wolverine 1, a ton of different options show up. So one other tool you can use is eBay. So say you type into eBay Wolverine JTC, John Tyler Christopher, and it pulls up a bunch of these listings. There's always somebody who will put the date, which is great. So here we know it's from 2020. So we're going to go back to CGC and type in Wolverine 20 because this is Wolverine #1 from 2020. All right, so there it is. This is the one that we're looking for, but we need the John Tyler Christopher variant cover. So that's where we select Christopher variant cover. Sometimes there might be 2 Christopher variant covers. And so when that's the case, eBay is also another great resource. Is you can find the actual book that's graded by a CGC already and look at the label and see how did CGC notate it on the label, and that's what you want to use for your submission form. So here we can see they consider this the Christopher variant cover. So sometimes you want to see, Clayton Crane variant cover A. eBay already graded copies is a great resource for that. So Christopher variant cover, that's correct. We're going to value it at $400, and we're going to add it. And we need to get to 25, and here we're at 13. So let's say you have 12 copies of Invincible Iron Man 1 that you want to add from January 2017. Invincible Iron Man 1, here it is, 2017. Here's all the different variants for it, but this is cover A. And we're going to say, how many do we need? We need 12 copies, quantity 12, declared value. Let's put it at $100. And add comic. Now, at this point, we have 25 books, so our pre-screen is good. If you selected pre-screen, you don't have 25 books, you're going to run into problems with the submission form. So here's where you can go to Review Cart and finish your order, or you can add another service. So let's say you wanted to submit these. If this was your only submission, you'd go to Review Cart, but we want to submit some Silver Age books with this submission. So we're going to click Add Another Submission. And here's where these are pre-selected for you because you're adding a submission type to the same one. So if you had a Last Ronin that you wanted to add, you're going to have to actually go through and check out with your submission from before, start a new one for a magazine tier, add your Last Ronins, and then put that in the same box. So you can check out and add a magazine submission or a poster submission or whatever you want. To get them on the same invoice, it has to be the same type of collectible. So right now we're in comics, regular grading submission, mail and show drop off. We're going to do grading, and then we're going to do economy because we just want to add some Silver Age books. You can add, any tier that you want to it, but we're going to add some Silver Age books. We're not going to do pre-screen or imaging, but we are going to do fast track. So we're not going to do pre-screen because, we're going to submit some mid-grade Silver Age books and we're just going to get whatever grade they get. But we are going to add fast track because the turnaround time for economy is like almost a year. And for $12.75, it's well worth it to cut, many, many months off of the turnaround time in most cases. So we're going to go ahead and add comic for fast track. And let's say we want to add Fantastic Four number 45 from December 1965, the first appearance of the Inhumans. Let's say it's a mid-grade copy, that we found at a Comic-Con. It's valued around $400. So we're going to go back over here and type Fantastic Four 45. And here's where you have a bunch of different options, but there's less options. So I don't need to type the year per se. Here you can see it's from 1965. That's the one that we want. We're going to add it as a $400 value. Maybe on this one, we aren't too worried about, getting things all in the same pre-screen tier. So maybe we do want the custom label on this because this is just such an awesome Fantastic Four custom label. So for $5, we're going to add that, and we're going to add that comic. Now you can add as many as you want or as few as you want. This is going to ship separately because it's a different tier. So even though we submit this in the same box, the 25 modern books are going to ship on their own, and this one book is going to ship on its own. So that's something to keep in mind. And so let's say that that's it. That's our full submission. This one Silver Age book and the 25 modern books. We're going to go over here and click Review Cart. And this where it shows you all of your different things. So you could have more stuff in here. You could have a whole bunch of different tiers and submit them all in the same box. That's fine. But here's everything we submitted. One comic in grading fast track economy with the custom label. And there's a $5 handling fee for each tier. Okay. So if this grade pre-screen had 500 books in it, it would be the one $5 fee. So for each tier, there's a $5 handling fee. And here we have 25 comics, and we can click here and show them if we want to just verify that everything's okay. You could also add another service at this point if you wanted to add more books. And this tells you the total for the grading, but it does not include the shipping. So now we're going to go choose shipping method. So if you don't have your own shipping service, you can use CGC's discounts for FedEx. This is a great option for some really good rates, FedEx Ground. You click this and go through the different processes for getting a FedEx label. What I recommend, because in my area FedEx doesn't do free pickups, I recommend pirateship.com. And if you go to pirateship.com, they have really good rates on USPS and UPS. Those are the two, the United States Postal Service and UPS. And they have really good rates, and you can do free pickups for USPS, and UPS is like a $3 pickup. So it's worth it to me to, be able to put this on my porch or have them come to the shop. It's worth it to use this service, and you get great rates for this. So I would click ship on my own, get my own label from Pirate Ship. You could also go to UPS or USPS and get a label at the counter, but they are going to charge you way more. So the last thing you want to do is actually go to the post office or go to UPS. If you're able to do this online submission form, you're able to get a cheaper label either here or through CGC. That's my recommendation. So ship on my own. So that's that. But the return shipping, here's how you select how you want your books shipped back to you. Ship with CGC, I highly recommend this, even if you have your own accounts with FedEx or UPS, because you get CGC's discounts, which are gonna rival, if not beat, your own dealer accounts, and you get better insurance. So your books shipped with CGC through FedEx, even if it's FedEx Ground, are insured up to $100,000 per package procured by CGC. This is huge. This is going to cost you way more if you go through your own label. So that's why I recommend using CGC's FedEx Ground. So this is the total cost if I select FedEx Ground for both submissions. It's going to send the 25 modern books in one submission, and it's going to send the one Silver Age book in a separate shipping submission. And so the total cost for both of those is $65, which is great. You can also do overnight. It's still insured for the same amount, up to $100,000, but it's just way more expensive. So then you click enter payment, and you come in here and it'll show you your total. So now this is your total with shipping out the door. This is what it's going to cost you. Now, CGC doesn't charge your card typically if it's a pre-screen until the books are graded. If you're doing just a regular submission, they're probably going to charge your card right when they get the books. The reason is when it's a pre-screen, they don't know how much to charge your card because they don't know how many are going to get graded and how many are going to get rejected. So little extra information there. Enter your credit card information, accept the terms, and submit. Here it says your order has been completed successfully. There's your order number. You also get an email confirmation. You can print the packing slip. So you have to include the packing slip in your package. Incredibly important that you do that and that you pack them. You pack the items according to the packing slip and not the order you entered them on the form. So you print out the packing slip and just package them in an easy to understand way for CGC, and we'll go over that here in just a moment. All right, so now that we have our packing slip printed out, and I'll go over this more in just a second, we can pack everything up and box it, get it ready to ship to CGC. So the long story short of this is to safely get the books to CGC and then have them easily be able to know what's what, where it is when they open it and check things in. That's the nuts and bolts. There's lots of different ways to safely ship comics, and we're just going to go over what works well for me. So the first thing is to make sure that you have adequate bags and boards to protect the books while they're at CGC and during shipping, but during handling at CGC for the most part. So this is my preferred bag. It's kind of a step up from a regular bag. It's Comic Pro Line 2 mil crystal clear OPP. Now this bag almost appears like Mylar. It's a really high quality bag. They're out of Canada, but you can order them online, and I like the silver/regular size. Now, depending on how expensive the books are that you're submitting, you might want to step up your bags and boards even more. So this is a Mylar with a full back board, so it's a lot thicker of a board. It's a lot harder to actually bend it, and the sky's the limit on how crazy you want to get depending on how expensive the books that you're submitting are. So one time I had a a submission. I submitted it with bags like this, where you can see the leading edge of the comic, the comic leads first. So you can imagine if this book were to be dropped into a short box, if that's the first thing that hits, you can get a bent corner, because this comic book can slide around a little bit in the bag and board. It's not snug enough. Whereas with these Comic Pro Line bags and boards, the board is what leads. It fits nice and snug in there, and if this were to get dropped in there, the board would hit first, protecting the book, and it also doesn't shift around in there. It's in there nice and snug, but not too snug. So one time I had 25 books I submitted in a bags like this, and the entire submission was rejected. And when I got the books back, I noticed that every single one of them had a tiny corner ding, eliminating it from the possibility of a 9.8. Another thing, if there's too much room in the bag and board, is there can be color rub from the back of the comic onto the board, and that also can, you know, kill your shot at a 9.8 if there's color rub. You can have some color rub in a 9.8, but a lot of it like that will usually prevent you from a 9.8. I like to send books in packs of 10, and so I just have 10 books here. We're going to pretend it's the same 10 from my submission form, and I split them in half, so I go 5 and 5 and do face to face like that. And the reason for that is the physics of it makes this a perfectly square package on one side. The spines, if you had all the spines on one side, it would be kind of have a slant to it. I've seen some people do face to face on every other comic, and I don't really know if the physics on that make a lot of sense with the two faces of the comics touching each other. But either way, this works really well for me. And I take the 10 comics and put them in a craft bag. And this is to mitigate, you know, any kind of shifting so that the books don't rub and you don't get color rub. So you take the craft bag and make sure this is nice and tight, fold it over. You take your painter's tape, you get one of these handy dispensers, and it makes your life a lot easier. So I put a piece of tape there, fold it over the top, and put a piece of tape there. So now I have 10 books nice and snug here in a pack. And then we can put them in a Gemini comic mailer. So this is a Gemini comic mailer. You can get them straight from Gemini on their website, or also eBay or Amazon. And the way that this works is you grab it from the top and you do kind of a twist and pull. It's like one motion, like a twist and pull. And then you set the book in there, get it nice and centered. Fold over this flap. Use your painter's tape again, because you don't want whoever's going to be opening it to be fumbling with, you know, this kind of tape at this end, because they could potentially damage the book. So painter's tape makes it nice and easy. It holds them in place, but it's easy to take off when they open it. And we do the same thing here for the bottom, and put another piece of tape there so it's nice and snug. So the whole point is that the books, the package, doesn't move around at all. You can get a little crazier than that, but don't make it frustrating. I see a lot of people use excessive amounts of tape, and then you risk damaging the book because you're like yanking on all this tape. So just enough to make it so it's not going to move, and then you fold this over, and this is where the Gemini is nice and tight. It's not over full and it's not under full. Either way, it can be a little bit, you know, risk to damage. So there we have our first 10 books. And then what I like to do, and I'm not sure if this is really necessary, it might be overkill, but I like to make it really easy on CGC when they receive the book. So I'll label the box as box 1, and then come over to my packing slip and clearly mark exactly what's in box 1. So they know when they look at the packing slip, okay, I can find these 10 books in box 1. So I'll quickly pack up this second one here. And you can see I put on here box 2. Now you can, you know, fit a little bit more than 10 if you want. It could be under or over. So in our submission we had 26 books. So we're just gonna pretend that this is our 26 books, all right? It's really only 20 books. We're just gonna pretend this is our 26 books. So I would take the Geminis and put them box in a box. So one box that works really well for that is a priority mail medium flat rate. This will work good for probably about 20 raw comics. And you can order the USPS boxes and supplies for free on their website, and they'll ship them to your house for free. So as you can see here, there's a little bit of room on top and there's a lot of room on the side. So we want to fill all of the room in here so that there's no room for the Geminis to move around. So now I've got it packed completely full with paper, so there's no room for the books to move around. Make sure you put your packing slip in there, and this would be a complete box. And as you can kind of hear, there's no movement whatsoever inside this box. That's what you're looking for. Now, one tip on this, it used to be that if you submitted a book in the Express tier or the walkthrough tier, it would have them open the packages sooner, and that's still true. The Express or the walkthrough tiers do get prioritized, but they're opening packages so quickly now that it's not worth it unless you already have something in that tier. So it used to be that we would submit one of our modern books as Express or walkthrough to get the package open quicker, but it's just a waste of money these days because they're opening and processing packages so quickly now. But if you did have an Express, walkthrough, or a signature series submission, you would want to write in big letters on all sides of the box, EX for Express, WK for walkthrough, or the initials of the signing artist on all sides of the box, so that when this is delivered to CGC, they get their packages on a pallet, and it could be stuck, somewhere in the middle of the pallet, and you want to make it really clear that it's a box that needs to be prioritized. Now, I like to submit books at least 100 at a time because you save on shipping and other fees. So these boxes that come from CGC work really good. This size box works really good for about 100 books. You can fit about 10 to 12 Geminis in here, so you can comfortably fit real neatly 10 Geminis, 100 books. And they also have this bigger box, which is slightly bigger, that they sometimes send submissions back from CGC. So if you take the guts out of this one, you can fit almost 200 books comfortably in there. So that's how I like to submit books, to save a little bit on shipping and processing fees. So now that you've packaged and sent your books off to CGC, now you can do what everyone does and check every single day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, to check the status of your submission. If you're like most collectors, you're going to be really neurotic about, checking the status of everything. So you can go to My CGC up here and select My Submissions, or you can also go to Submit and Submission Forms and view the status of your submissions here. And this is where it pulls up all of your submissions. It'll keep them all right here. I'm gonna have it off to the side so it doesn't show my submission numbers. And this is where you can check the different statuses and the different statuses of your submission. So when they first receive your submission, every single thing goes straight to scheduled for grading. So day one, after they've opened your package, this is where it will say scheduled for grading. And then there's several different statuses that change as they go through the different departments. The next stage after scheduled for grading is grading, encapsulation, and imaging. So this is where they're actually being graded. Then once they've been graded, they go to, and encapsulated, they go to the last stage, which is grading, quality control. Now, after grading, quality control, it'll go to shipped. And once it's actually shipped, you can click on the hyperlink where it says shipped. It'll bring up the tracking information from whatever service they use to ship it. And this is also, once it's been shipped, you can also click on the left where it says submission number. You can click on the hyperlink for submission number, and it will pull up the actual grades of the books. So this is huge. Once your books have been shipped, a lot of people like to go and check the grades. So here it'll show you the actual grades, and it'll also show you the grader's notes. If they have notes, it's not required. They don't have to put notes on things. Oftentimes a very frustrating part of the experience, but if there is notes, they will be listed here. So there you have it, folks, the step-by-step process of how to submit to CGC. I hope that you found this video helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, and like this video for your chance to win a free slab. And head over to brycecomics.com and sign up for the newsletter for your chance to win another free slab. And you also get first access to new inventory, new collections that come through the shop. If you use code COLLECT10, you'll get 10% off all in-stock items, and that code is always active. You can find me over on Whatnot, usually weekly, for live comic book auctions that are a ton of fun. Link in the description for $15 towards your first purchase, and hit me up over on Instagram for trades for grails and other exciting things over on Instagram. Thank you as always for sticking with me to the end of the video. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bry's Comics.